So, guys, the facts about fats, the nutritional workshop that I have been dying to deliver to you, but you have to deliver it in a way because the facts are all about science, guys. And we're going to dive a little bit into that right now because I want to empower you with the choices or empower you to understanding the choices that we make inside of the group in the community when it comes to nutrition. So, first of all, there are four different types of fats that we're going to go through today. Saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and then we are going to go through trans fats as well. So there are a few different subject areas we need to go into, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down each and every single one of them, guys. I'm going to give you a great understanding of what they are, some of the things to avoid, how to, what are the best fats for us and why, and then we're going to go from there. It's only going to be about a 10-minute training session, guys, but I just want you to understand the choices that we make as far as our nutrition is concerned and why we do so. So, first of all, guys, saturated fats. They're not all built the same. There are different forms of saturated fat. The ones that we're talking about right now are essential to your life. They are there to support cell membranes. The first saturated fats we are talking about are usually solid at room temperature, guys. So we're talking like full fat dairy products, cheeses, butter, ghee, which is spelled G-H-E-E. I don't know if you ever cooked with it. It's quite prominent inside of Indian cooking, and it's very, very tasty in the right dish. I wouldn't recommend it all the time. And it is even in fruits as well, this saturated fat, guys, which is coconut and coconut oil too. Now, the reason the saturated fats are really, really good to cook with, first of all, are because they are highly stable, which makes them appropriate for high temperature cooking, guys. So I do not recommend that you cook with any other oils, guys, apart from butter, which should ideally be grass-fed as well, organic butter, ghee, and coconut oil too, guys. But that being said, you should actually limit your intake of it according to the dietary intake that you have. So there was a study done a few years ago, guys, about saturated fats, and although they might have a really, really bad name because, like, back in the 90s, 2000s, it was all kind of like, whoa, well, even earlier 80s, 90s, it was all like, whoa, saturated fat, get rid of it, and, butter got replaced for margarine, which turns out is only kind of like one step away from being plastic in itself, which, chemically speaking, which is horrific. So how we're actually consuming it, I do not know, but stay away from that stuff, guys. That comes down into trans fats a little bit later on. But basically there was a study done, and it was all about like testing fat levels inside of your blood glucose. So basically how much fat was going around your bloodstream at the time. And after a high fat meal, there was less fat circulating in your bloodstream than there was in a high carbohydrate meal. Go figure. Well, basically what it comes down to, guys, is that fats, when they're mixed with, especially saturated fats we're talking about right now, guys, when mixed with either high glycemic index carbs or sugar specifically, really drive into the bloodstream. The reason that is a bad thing, guys, is because that's what starts to clog up. And what happens is you get a cholesterol buildup and a restriction inside of your arteries as a result of not being able to actually take that blood and that glucose out of the bloodstream, and so it becomes very, very difficult for blood flow to go, hence high cholesterol, heart disease, and all these other things that come associated with it. So as far as your saturated fats are concerned, guys, so just to reinforce again, high full fat dairy products, cheeses, butter, ghee, and coconut oils, guys, limit the intake. Don't overdo it, because first of all, there's two different perspective lenses on this. There is the first perspective lens, which is there is no major studies out there long-term, minus the high glycemic index carbs, minus the sugar, to say that high amounts of saturated fat are either good or bad for us, because we haven't had a long-term study done without grain-based carbohydrates, high glycemic index carbohydrates, sort of like pasta, rice, breads, wheat-based things, and a lack of sugar inside of that dietary intake as well. So that's why we can't really say they're amazing for us or they're bad for us, but they are great to cook with, guys. In a limited amount, say a couple of tablespoons of the oil a day, it's good for you, but anything in excess, guys, as normal, could well be bad for you. We just don't have the studies on there. I'm not willing to take the chance, and neither should you. So small amounts of, first of all, the saturated fats that we talked about. Polyunsaturated fats. Now, this is where it starts to get a little bit nasty, guys. corn, bean, soya, canola, rapeseed oils, vegetable oils, all of those in oil form are horrifically volatile when it comes to cooking. So basically that means any sort of temperature, they start to break down, they start turning into trans fats, guys. Okay, and the reason they're so volatile is because of the processing that takes place to get them from their original form and source. So for example, a piece of corn, a piece beans, canola, rapeseed, soybean. When these oils are extracted, guys, they become very volatile, and most of the time they contain trans fats, which are horrific for you guys. I will get back down to that later again, but essentially you just shouldn't be using them, guys. And the reason for that, aside from the volatility of it, it starts to break down the nutrients and becomes horrifically bad for us to come inside of the body, which again, we'll go on to the trans fat side of things in a minute, is they're just not great. They're very, very high in omega-6. Okay, now what that means is, has anyone ever heard of the omega-3 and 6 thing? You know, the essential oils and the fats that you can get? Well, omega-3 is anti-inflammatory, and omega-6 is inflammatory, so it inflames your body. Now in our westernized way of eating and the society that we live in today, they reckon that you should have a 1-to-1 ratio, balance, yin and yang, okay, omega-3, omega-6. We live in a world now where the ratio is more like 25 of omega-6 inflammation to 1 of omega-3. So guys, what you're looking for inside of your polyunsaturated fat is you're looking for, okay, wild fish, organic eggs, and grass-fed animals to increase your omega-3 intake, guys, through that yin and yang balance. What things that you want to try and avoid, guys, are salad dressings, roasted nuts. More often than not, if they don't say dry roasted, they do have omega-6 oils in them. Cakes, cookies, and things like that, guys. Be really, really careful on that intake, which I know we are according to the physicists, and we'll only consume them once a week. But it's those volatile oils that go inside of their corn, bean, canola, rapeseed, vegetable oils, things like that, which are highly volatile. They go through a cooking process. Imagine a cake or a cookie, guys. It's obviously baked at a high temperature. Chances of that turning to trans fat, really, really high, which are bad news. So try and get more omega-3 oils in if you can, guys. There are some great supplements out there. There are, you're looking for a really high, without trying to dive into science too much, EPA and DHA content. If you just want gel capsules, the higher the better inside of that. And then there is Algae Alternatives, again, in case people are a vegan or vegetarian, which I do believe comes from krill oil, okay, guys, which is an algae alternative. So by increasing that relative to what we get from our food sources, you can balance out that ratio of that 25-to-1 as we spoke about before, so you become more anti-inflammatory, not inflamed. Now moving on to the next one, monounsaturated fats. So you get a reduction in cardiovascular disease and neurodegenerative diseases through regular consumption. Wow, what does that mean? It basically means these are really, really good for our brain health, guys. They basically, our brain has something called a myelin sheath. It's like a protective coating for the neurons up inside of our brain, and it's basically formed by the monounsaturated fats. Okay, so by actually increasing our intake of these, so these are avocado oil, macadamia nuts, and extra virgin olive oil, which is like the mecca, which you may have heard me mention once or twice, okay? And they all basically help form this myelin sheath around the brain, so it's like a protective layer just from eating these foods. So why wouldn't you? It's also linked to cognitive function and all sorts of other basically fluidity of the neurons and things like that. The synapse, I don't want to dive too much into the science behind this, but basically it stops you gaining what we call an amyloid plaque buildup, which is quite horrible. It's very vasorestrictive, so it stops blood flow again, but mainly in the brain, dementia, neurodegenerative diseases, as we just explained. So it actually helps to prevent that plaque buildup, that amyloid plaque, It basically breaks down an enzyme and helps to basically prevent stroke and heart attack and things like that as well. So really, really important, guys, that monounsaturated intake. So if you're not consuming avocados, avocado oil, macadamia nuts, and EVOO, so extra virgin olive oil, guys, then please do so. Now, the test for a good extra virgin olive oil should be not by the color of the oil itself, guys, but by simply taking a teaspoon, putting the olive oil onto a teaspoon, slurping off like you are taking a spoonful of soup, and it should be very peppery and grassy, not greasy. Okay, if it tastes really greasy, chances are it's a low quality oil. The higher quality oil contains something called oleocanthals, which is basically an antioxidant which helps with that amyloid plaque buildup, and it actually allows certain vitamins like A, E, D, and K from your food sources to be transferred. So you need those fats to be really, really good at transferring vitamins for you, okay? Vitamins A, E, D, and K are fat-soluble vitamins, so it's really, really important, like green leafy veggies and things like that, guys, specifically kale, spinach, things like that. When you add them into your foods and salads and things like that, you should drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, some avocado oil, some avocado on your salads and things like that, or on your dinners and things, to make sure that you uptake. The uptake on it is actually 3 to 8 times more effective just from a little drizzle of olive oil on. So really, really good points in here as well, guys, okay? So just making you think more carefully about your food, how you prepare it and how you consume too. So the final thing, trans fats. Now, I don't want to scare you with this, guys, but these are incredibly detrimental to us. And I'm going to explain exactly how detrimental in just a second. So these are usually caused by, they are hydrogenated oils, and they're present in cakes, cookies, processed polyunsaturated fats. So going back again, corn, bean, canola, rapeseed, soy oils, vegetable oils and things. And as soon as you add some temperature to them, they turn into these trans fats. Okay, they are bad fucking news, guys. They are horrible for the body. Okay, so here's a statistic for you. Trans fat consumption is associated with a 34% increased risk of all-cause mortality, meaning early death by any cause, guys. They are that bad. You imagine, right? So we were just talking before about the myelin sheath and how it protects the neurons, and how neuroplasticity and the flexibility of those neurons inside the brain are really, really important, because it's a fluid thing. Your brain is majority of fat, so it obviously has to be quite flexible. Trans fat basically stiffens it up like a board. Makes it really difficult, really hard for blood flow to pass through, and brittle almost. That is obviously not a good thing, guys. And the consumption of trans fats increases your risk of basically mortality as well. What a horrible fact. But that's the idea. Stay away from it, guys. Your high fat meals, like the deep fried meals that you will go out to, guys, chips and things like that, when they're fried up in those oils, they become a meal of death. I know that sounds really extreme, but essentially what we talked about before, remember, going back to saturated fats to start with, if you are having high fat with high carbohydrates, you are blocking your blood stream with high fat and high glycemic index carbohydrates, and basically your cholesterol is not going to be able to help clear that out, guys. That's a different science lesson again, but you're going to end up with high cholesterol, higher blood pressure, then your risk of heart disease becomes increased, all because of these trans fats, these horrible fats, guys, these polyunsaturated fats exposed to higher temperatures. They transfer into this trans fat, and then basically it's coming to get you. There is no other way of putting it. I know it sounds really morbid, and I know that sounds quite serious, but it is. The studies done on trans fat, they call them Franken fats in science, Frankenstein fats, because they are that bad for you, okay? Is there any safe level of trans fats? None. That is what everybody is saying, guys. So be so careful. Do not just get rid of your, I don't know if we use a lot of corn or bean oil over here, guys, but mainly for us, it's rapeseed. There might be a little bit of soy oil, vegetable oils. Look inside of the dressings that come with salads and things like that. They will be loaded with omega-6 oils, guys. Really inflammatory. Don't cook with them at all. Going back to the ones that are good for cooking, guys, butter, ghee, coconut oil, are great, but use extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, avocados, you know, pastured eggs and things like that to just add and complement your meals. And then that's going to help with the uptake of those A, E, D, and K fat soluble vitamins. Now, guys, I know there was a lot of science that just went on inside of that. So please rewatch this video if you need to. Make some notes. And I'm just here to educate and empower you with the choices that we make inside of the Ultimate Foods List to make sure that you know you have this toolkit of choices to make and how you're going to feel in making them and the consequences of your long-term health associated with it. So guys, that is the facts about fats. If you have any questions, just let me know.